What's interesting about the clinical residency approach is that not only do the student teachers learn a tremendous amount in this very supportive setting, but the mentor teachers are also learning and having an opportunity to demonstrate their leadership, to share what they know, to use their expertise, which is exciting. It keeps people in the career longer because they want to be able to share their expertise, and they will tell you they're learning too.
Hello, I'm Anna Marie Francois, Director of UCLA Center X. In this episode of Impact, Preparing Effective Teachers for Urban Schools, we see how we can keep our most accomplished teachers in the classroom and acknowledge the exceptional value they bring to educating students and pre-service teachers.
I became a mentor teacher first and foremost because I just love the aspect providing mentorship for younger teachers. Teaching such a deep joy and passion of mine that for myself, if I didn't have mentor teachers, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't know what I know today. So the teacher education in inner city has been so difficult, and I wanted to be able to give a real life experience that's authentic and deep for the grad students at UCLA.
The goal of the UCLA Impact Program is to prepare highly qualified community teachers and urban school teacher leaders through a residency program that couples apprentices with a master teacher, which we call mentors, and they work alongside one another in a gradual release co-teaching experience for a full year.
When we identify UCLA Impact Mentors, it's really a partnership process between the school sites and the administrators, our UCLA Teacher Education Program faculty advisors, and the relationships that we have.
The Impact Program's process for choosing mentors is we first approach the principals at the schools where we know that they have best practices and we want to place apprentices. And we approach those principals and give them an overview of the program. I'll usually go meet with them, and then we'll ask them for recommendations. Which of your teachers do you think would make a strong candidate, given that this is what we're looking for and these are the requirements of the program? So they give us a list of names. And then we'll invite those mentors or those potential mentors to come to a small group interview. And we have those on a couple of consecutive Saturdays, usually. And the mentors will get together. We'll ask them a few questions about their practice. We'll show them a video of a new teacher presenting a lesson, and we'll ask them to give some written and some oral feedback and to discuss it. And so we will sit and sort of observe that process. From that small group interview, then we will extend invitations to people who we think might be a good fit, and we will schedule a time to go out into their classrooms and do an observation.
And see what their practice looks like, whether or not it matches the pedagogical and philosophical beliefs that we are supporting in our program. And then also, how do they relate to the students? And will that be a good model for our apprentices? One of the components that we feel is really critical to our mentor program is that we really see them as co-instructors for our apprentices, because our apprentices spend so much time in the field.
We're looking for people who've got strong content knowledge. We're also looking for people who have demonstrated ability to work with other adults in their classroom. And we want someone who's open. We want someone who has good communication skills.
The role of the mentor teacher is primarily to build strong professional relationships with the apprentice teacher, but also to make their practice and their decision making explicit to a novice teacher.
Okay, so let's brainstorm a little bit, like what we want to do for structure there to help the students with the editing process. And I can fill you in on some of the things that were really like crazy for the letter of intent, the things that they struggled with the most when I was reading.
Okay.
And they're actually related to this, so that's probably why we saw the same mistake there and what they're struggling with on the research paper.
So one of the things about teaching that many people don't understand is that you are making instructional decisions literally every single minute you are in the classroom. And for accomplished teachers, that practice is so innate, it's so automatic that in a traditional student teaching environment, mentor teachers don't stop and say, the reason I did this is because of this. The reason I responded to Jeannie this way as opposed to responding this way is because this is what I know about Jeannie.
Whenever you get to work with another adult, you have to get to know that person, and you have to know how to talk to them. And that's what the Impact program has taught me, how to interact with that person and get that and give that feedback in a positive way. I like when you did the I see things, that you made the chart. I spy things
the I
with
Spy
my
charts?
eyes.
Yeah, and it kind of helped them. I feel like it helped them categorize because we did one chart, I Spy in the classroom, so they were
Yes.
able to see what's around them, and then I had them envision like what they see at home. So we did a separate chart on what's in their house, and they were able to give answers like, oh, there's a couch, mommy, daddy, and kind of find the differences of what was at home and what was in the classroom. So I like that part about it.
Yeah, that part was great too, because when you were doing the print, they can see that their words have a meaning, on the print area. So that's great.
Being a UCLA Impact Mentor has really challenged my ability as an educator because we need to be explicit. Why do I do what I do? How do I do what I do? And I think that has challenged me. There are a lot of things I do in my class because it's my personality. This is who I am. But how do I clearly and effectively explain that to another human being in case they want to replicate that? Or what if it doesn't work for their personality?
I think you were doing a better job at staying on script, and I wasn't.
Okay.
I was just ready to, because they were ready to participate with us, and I didn't do a very good job of, we're doing this.
When you are a mentor, you get the opportunity to kind of see yourself. Sometimes I'll see Miss Vega teaching and she'll do something and I know that she did that because I have modeled that. Ooh, okay, I need to make sure that we talk about that. On the same token, she'll do something that I know that I've modeled for her, and then the students respond to it so well. I'm like, yes, that's what we want, that the apprentices can go back and reflect, and then I know I've taken a part of that.
That's what novice teachers need. That's what apprentice teachers need. They need for accomplished teachers to make their thinking explicit. They need to be open to the questions that novice teachers would have, and to really be vulnerable in their classrooms, to let a novice teacher in full confidence take over the classroom and teach the children that they've been charged with.
Ms. Brinkman's been really just instrumental in my development as a teacher. Her willingness to give over her classrooms to me. I've heard just from other people in other programs that they felt like they're a guest in someone else's classroom, but I never felt that way here. From the very beginning, I was here with her before school started, and I helped her decorate the classroom. So it was our classroom. Everything was ours. And she always made that, and I even asked her once, I was like, were you very intentional about that? Because I felt welcome from day one. And she's like, actually I was. Like, she had an apprentice last year, and so she herself kind of reflected on what would make me feel more like a teacher, and she did a great job at that.
Mentor teachers really need to have a heart for supporting new teachers as a service to the profession, as well as a service to their colleagues. I think they need to be really in tune to their own practice, what it is they do and why they do it, and be able to share that with an apprentice teacher, to be able to share their classroom openly with an apprentice teacher, but also to be there in case the apprentice teacher falters, to be their cheerleader, to support them, to hold them up when they don't think, when the apprentice teacher thinks that they cannot teach one more second, for the mentor teacher to come not behind them and correct for them, but to encourage them to move forward and to give them ideas on how they can be successful.
I work with mentors, both informal and formally. I think communication is the most important, and there are some formal ways that we as faculty advisors maintain communication with the mentor teachers. One is we ask mentor teachers to fill out an evaluative or developmental form every month. That kind of communicates to us what our apprentices' needs are. Another formal communication is we have a mathematics observation, classroom observation rubric that they fill out, and that also provides formative feedback to me about what my students' needs are. And on top of the formal communication, we have a lot of informal communication. So I would say probably 2 to 3 days a week I am in the field, meaning I'm visiting classrooms, I'm observing my apprentices teach, I'm having informal conversations with the mentors about their progress. So usually in those conversations I get a really good idea of what both my apprentices, what their needs are, and what the mentors' needs are.
One of the things that we've learned from this program is how much the program has benefited the mentor teachers. So when we started, we were really focused on, okay, what does the educational program look like for a pre-service teacher, a teacher who's just learning to teach? But what we've also found in the 4 years that we've been doing the UCLA Impact program is how much the mentor teachers have grown and learned from their apprentices, from the experience of being a mentor, from the experience of teaching others. And so it's been really wonderful to see those mentor teachers have to think about their own thinking and think about their own teaching, and then being able to share that with other people. And that's been such a great learning for them.
Being a mentor in the program itself has been a wonderful experience because I've learned so many new things just as part of continuing professional development. I've also continued at this point starting my national board certification. So really just being reflective of my own practice and being side by side with somebody while they're also going through that process really keeps your mind working. So you're not caught up in the day-to-day planning and whatnots of a classroom, but you're really getting to stop and think about your own practice. And professional development should be something that's ongoing, whether you've been teaching 5 years or 40 years, it really needs to be something so that you constantly learn new ideas and bring new ideas to the classroom. And working with the apprentice has been great because she brings a breath of fresh air, all these new ideas that she's shared with her cohort, and those get to come into my classroom. So it's been really great for me and for my students.
The dynamic of my relationship with my apprentice teachers has really affected the way that I work with my students. And the reason why is because when you're talking to another adult, you don't want to have a power dynamic, especially if it's a mutual learning situation. And you have to be really careful about the language that you use, and you have to be really careful about the way that you ask questions and the way that you initiate certain conversations. And the reason why you're so careful is because you want to make sure you're being respectful, and you want to make sure that that person continues to feel comfortable working with you. And those are things that we forget sometimes when we're working with young people because of the power dynamic that's pre-established by the institution. And that positive interaction and that being really careful to preserve the relationship along with the productivity of the relationship is a huge thing I learned that's, I think, improved the way I interact with my students a lot.
It's refreshing to be a mentor teacher. The energy that the apprentices bring in, the knowledge, the enthusiasm, it's a great way to reinvigorate yourself. And I think she's brought a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of new ideas and new lessons. We try to co-teach, and we meet in the mornings and we plan, and she'll always have something to add to a lesson. So I think that's what I really enjoy.
Ever since I started working with the mentees, as I was kind of learning to help them reflect, I started reflecting on what I do. And so I think that through reflection, I've been able to see things that in the strategies that I use, that I can kind of get rid of the ones that don't work, and I can kind of use the ones that work, but in a more efficient way than before. I don't keep trying the same thing over and over if it's not working.
They learn as they articulate their practice. They learn from the student teachers who are bringing new methods and new techniques from their own training. So it's a win-win where knowledge grows for everyone in the project and for the profession as a whole.
Our mentor teachers undergo a lot of professional development, not only around their own pedagogy, but also how they support their apprentices. So one of the ways that we want to make sure that they feel supported is through the Methods with Mentors class or professional development. And it's a combination of having them spend time co-learning and co-sharing with their apprentices, where they are presenting methods, sharing their own methods around either science or math or elementary and ECE instruction, dialoguing and investigating what that might mean for their own practice and the apprentice's practice, spending time thinking about what does that look like in classroom instruction and how might that influence their classroom practice and lesson planning.
In Methods with Mentors, I have learned how to speak to my apprentice. I've also learned what kind of feedback she's looking for and how to be explicit about what I'm doing. A lot of what we do in teaching sometimes feels natural, but there's theory behind it. And it's really made me cognizant of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Classroom management techniques, lesson planning, things that I thought everybody knew how to do. So I'm definitely a lot more aware, and I'm able to articulate that to my apprentice.
I was being taught how to share what I know, and also learning how to become a coach and distinguishing the difference between being a coach and being a consultant and being somebody who's just going to say, this is how you do things, to help the people that I work with somewhat through reflection, to help them see their own vision and to help them come into their own teaching.
The mentor forums and collaborating with my colleagues has been really fantastic. Mentor teachers are not only teaching classrooms, where a lot of us are on adjunct committees as leads, but having the space to talk about what is working with our apprentices, what is not working, and also just to vent sometimes really provides a healthy atmosphere. Of course, we're trying to frame it in a positive manner, so the mentor forums has been very helpful.
Really reinforcing the fact that we value the mentor's expertise and what they can bring to our apprentices, and in that it's not just the faculty advisors who are the ones that are teaching methods, that we really believe that the mentors are a critical piece in that, and that by bringing them to this Methods with Mentors professional development, that's highlighting their expertise in that area.
Last year, it was very heavy on cognitive coaching, which I had never been exposed to cognitive coaching. So when I first heard it, I just thought I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
Cognitive coaching is such a critical piece to our program. It has over 20 years of research behind it as far as a way, one of the most effective ways to help teachers build their teacher efficacy, which we know is one of the critical pieces for teachers to be successful, not only feel successful for themselves and have that satisfaction, but also for their students.
The cognitive coaching sessions, what you'll be seeing today with Carrie is that you'll see us catching up briefly, and then you'll see us probably doing a reflective map conversation. Carrie will be observing a lens that I identify called craftsmanship. Evan and myself will be having a conversation about a lesson that Evan taught. So today we did something new. We did mini lessons in a station format. Yourself, me, Bruin Core Tutor, and a city year. We had 20-minute stations. and I wanted to know, how did it go for you? Yeah.
I definitely liked the station format. I liked that I was able to see multiple groups of students in a smaller setting, so I felt it was a lot more personal to be teaching the content in that way. Unfortunately, the 20-minute blocks they went by too quickly, and I found myself having a hard time pacing the structure of the concepts I was going to teach.
So the structure for you, the small group format was, you really appreciated the size. You mentioned that the content itself was tricky because of the time constraints. What might be one idea that you would do differently next time? So next week when we see the students again, what might you do differently?
One thing that I definitely wanted to do today that I wasn't able to was prepare questions for the students. So I had my content, I knew what my goals were and my objectives, but I didn't have a solid group of questions to ask the students. So I found myself having to come up with questions on the fly and wing it. And oftentimes formulating the questions and waiting for responses was taking up a bulk of the time.
So having questions ready, prepared, almost like a script or a repertoire of tools that would really enhance your conversation with the students. From there, I'll coach Evan through a reflection map, and then at the end of that conversation, Evan would then become the observer, and then Carrie and myself will have a reflective conversation about how our coaching went.
So Andre, you just had your reflecting conversation with Evan, and we're going to reflect on that coaching process now.
Okay.
So how did you think it went?
I think it went fairly smoothly, even though it was a speed round, but it was really smooth. I think having Evan articulate his thoughts clearly really enabled me to give him a little bit more guidance and direction of where he might want to go.
When they have that structure of relying on their cognitive coaching, they can say to the apprentice, oh, it looks like you might need some coaching, or it looks like you might need some consulting, and being really clear about what those different roles might be.
One of the ways I've seen that benefit our school is that our chemistry teacher, who was herself a strong teacher, she's been going through the national board process for a number of years, and one of the areas that she struggled with was self-reflection. And I think by having to ask her mentees questions about how they would improve their instruction, that she began to internalize that method. She also began reaching out to other teachers to have them come and observe her and participate in coaching her, even though they hadn't been formally trained. So all of that self-reflection, I think, led her to be a stronger teacher, and this year she just passed her national boards.
It's important to have teacher leaders at our school sites, especially at a pilot school and a public school. Oftentimes, principals, assistant principals, and counselors, just because of the demands of their schools, they might have blind spots that the teachers that they don't see about their classroom teachers. Teacher leaders were able to bridge that gap. We're in the classrooms every day, and we get to also go to the administration meetings. Given that we provided support for release time, that's been really helpful to bridge the gap between the classroom and a classroom teacher practicing and the administrative structure. And additionally, we have shared leadership. Teacher leaders knows what's best for our classrooms, for our faculty, and also for our parents and families. So having this teacher leadership model, the leads, we're able to really advocate for ourselves and our families, and we share with the administration what we need and how they can support us. Versus in our traditional school settings, the principals and admin, they tell us what they want to do, and sometimes it's their way or no way. So having a distributed leadership has been really healthy.
What we hope these teachers come away with is a greater understanding of themselves as leaders. Sometimes as a classroom teacher, it can be difficult to see yourself in a leadership role until you're actually in it, in an administrative role or a coordinator role. And that may be too late to really develop some of those skills because you're often on the ground running and you don't have time to stop and breathe. So for these teachers many of them are still in the classroom, it gives them the opportunity to really develop their identity as a leader in places that are safe, in ways that they can experiment and see what fits and what might not fit, so that when they do take on leadership roles, whether they're still as a classroom teacher or outside of the classroom, they have a sense of who they are as a leader and can carry that forward with other groups that they're working with.
I think that I've gained a lot not only in my teaching mentees, the people in the program, but also with my students, because I started using the techniques that I'm learning with my own students, and they definitely work. A census is a collection of information about what? A population. What do we call a collection of information about a sample? Survey. What is it again? Survey. All right, so what do we call a collection of information about a sample? Survey. Okay. Every year has been a very different experience for me, but yet every experience has been very positive, and I feel that I'm such a much better teacher overall than when I started.
The fact that I teach, it's because I love learning myself, and I love to help others learn. And this is a great setting because I'm doing essentially one-on-one tutoring. I get to share my craft and what I do, and I'm passionate about it. So I get to share that passion with another human being that is also passionate about it.
I would like to say that my mentor last year was just a great person. The best thing she gave me was just supporting me, giving her opinions and feedback on how I was doing, but really letting me do what I thought was best, so I could see if it really was best or if maybe I didn't know really yet what was best. And so I think that would be, I would thank her for that, definitely.
I would really like to tell my mentor that I'm very grateful. She was very honest. She never played it. She never said that it was going to be easy, that teaching is easy. When I was with her, it was very real, the experience. The planning, the lesson planning, I mean, in the back at some point we had a stack of piles of papers, but she realizes, you know what, I want to change that, but that is the reality of being a teacher. And then in my classroom now, I have a stack of papers. I'm doing much better, so I share my strategies with her, but I realize it is part of being a teacher. You're not going to be perfect. And so I really want to thank her for just being real and showing me an experience of what I really would be. So I think that's what prepared me. I knew what it was like, and I learned from that, and I try to improve for my teaching.
Teacher residency programs allow accomplished teachers to improve their effectiveness in practice by serving as a mentor for an apprentice teacher. I'm Anna Marie Francois. Next time on Impact, we explore the value of data in improving student achievement and how we use Impact program data to measure and improve the quality of the UCLA teacher education program.